The question of should I rebuild from the ground up comes from Diamon no Ace, and it follows the protagonist Sawamura as he journeys to become the ace of the baseball team that he is a part of in his high school career. And in journeying through towards this goal, Sawamura is nonetheless unrelenting. Eventually, he does achieve the level where he's able to stand on the mound as the lead pitcher, but this comes after intense struggle, intense failure, success, but most importantly, it comes as a consequence of his relentless effort. Sawamura was so committed to his pitching that he was the first to wake up. He was the first one there, and he was the last one to leave the field. He reviewed his pitching videos after every game to see the minute flaws that he could work on improving. In one episode in particular, he notices that there's a pattern in his pitching form that has led to terrible or unfavorable results. And what he asks himself is, should I break my pitching form down from square one and rebuild up from there? This stood out to me, reason being because the current form that Sawamura was speaking to was something that he worked on heavily, daily, day in and day out. It was the maxis of countless hours of effort and countless hours of struggle. But he was willing to let all of that go in order to build or rebuild from where a lot of times is one of the most scariest places to rebuild, from square one. But this wasn't something that he feared, and in fact, it was something that he eventually did. And oftentimes we run away from square one, but square one is not a bad thing. Sometimes the universe forces you back to the very foundations of your being, or sometimes, like Sawamura, you consciously decide to self-reflect and start over. In either case, square one allows you to examine the minor performance marks that you may have missed, those habits that you engaged in that you should have broken, and those habits and positions you should have adopted. To become number one in one's own life requires you to go back to square one and refine yourself over and over and over and over and over again. It's something that you have to get comfortable with, going back to square one, failing and then failing again, and then failing and then failing again, and then getting back up and trying further and further, while also looking to the markers that led to that failure. The question of should I rebuild from the ground up? The answer is yes. You should always be looking to rebuild from the ground up. And each time that ground from which you are starting from, it should be a little bit higher. Your prior best should now be the benchmark. Every time you go back to square one, the mound gets a little bit higher, it gets a little bit higher, it gets a little bit higher, to the point where your performance is so optimal that you look around and you find yourself exactly where you've always wanted to be, just like Sawamura, on top of the mound, pitching as the ace of his team, achieving his goal, beating his team. But again, this can only come from the commitment or the willingness to face the fear and the anxiety of going back to square one and rebuilding from the ground up.